Well, it's a brand new day, and we are absolutely delighted to have you join us right here on The Morning Brave. Whether you're getting ready for work, whether you're headed for school or your business, or you're just perhaps having a very quiet morning, welcome to The Morning Brave. We're live from our global headquarters here in Lagos, Nigeria. I am Kelly Giga.
I'm Jeffrey. As always, we'll bring you up to speed with happenings around the world. I think tomorrow is International Youth Day, so I want to talk about that tomorrow. But there's a lot to check on our list today. The first thing that came to my mind before we get to this is the fact that Nigerians should not stop talking on whichever platform they have to speak their minds to the government. I mean, critical, constructive criticism, not just ranting, because these things get to the authorities one way or the other. Because there was a former military administrator actually interviewed sometimes, asked, how do you even know when you were a military administrator that people are not saying the truth to you or lying to you? And he said you have to look for one way or the other in your own personal capacity to decipher. Because there are people around the president or your governor that they've taken it as a responsibility to lie to those people because they want to keep their job. They don't have the guts, the temerity, and the audacity to tell the leaders the truth. In fact, there was a time we used to hear that people used to print versions of newspapers, dailies, uniquely for the leaders of their principal, so that maybe the papers are leading with something else and they printed something else for their leader. So sometimes they make decisions based on the feedback they get from these immediate aides and all of that. So don't stop talking. But let's also tell you that the Director General of the Department of State Services, Ms. Oluwatosin Adeola Ajayi, has ordered the immediate release of a carpenter, Mustafa Mawana, who was cleared of allegations linking him to terrorist activities. That's what we got from the State Services. According to security sources, the release followed a thorough investigation of his case by the DSS investigation panel, which established that Katsina Born Mustafa is not a member of any terrorist organization and had no operational links with Ansari terrorist group. Mustafa was arrested in connection with the abduction and killing of school pupils, teachers in Orire local government area. He was subsequently subjected to thorough investigations to establish the extent, if any, of his involvement in the activities under investigation. So that's according to the latest from the DSS. The source recalled that, maybe we'll stop from there, this particular one. So yes, these are the things we like to hear in terms of proper investigation done. The ones that are guilty, either will book a date with them and they are God via the court, and the ones that are not found guilty to release. So that's Mr. Mustafa Mawana, cleared of being involved in terrorist activities. Kelly.
Yeah, really commendable. I think the DSS is doing a really fantastic job there. I feel for him that he was, he'd been detained for that, to face that panel session and all of that. So it's interesting to see that they've done their job carefully and they've come out openly to Nigerians to say this is what we've noticed and he is good to go. So great job. We want to see this spread across the nation as well. Whoever looks like a suspect. After all, there's a referee that was not allowed into the US because he was linked to terrorist groups. Yes, the continents were not happy and all of that, but if indeed there are strong indications that you are linked to a terrorist group, like in this country where, for instance, there was a minister who was linked to a terrorist group and yet was a minister, I think, for almost 8 years under the previous administration. So I really want to also commend the DSS. I think in the Enugu State as well, Governor Peter Mba is also commending the DSS for the arrest. Let me see if I can pull that.
Yeah, before we get to that Governor Mba's part, I just realized that the DSS DG also ordered the immediate release and approved the payment of initial 3 million naira as compensation to assist this man in meeting his immediate needs and restarting. And this is not actually the first time. They recall that the 20 million compensation the DG had also handed over a Sokoto-based businessman who was accidentally shot and injured in 2016 during a pre-dawn raid in Jos. Also recall the case of Abuja-based businesswoman Chineze Ozadibe, where the DG also ordered the release and payment of 10 million naira compensation in October 2025 after reviewing her case. So many other, compensations being paid when perhaps you find out that, okay, perhaps we were wrong, or this was not properly established. So the trauma the person had to go through for being named. So that's right to go. You were talking about
his reputation and all of that. Yeah, so in Enugu State as well, Governor Peter Mba has also commended intelligence and security agencies there for nabbing three members of the notorious kidnap gang responsible for the August 2 attack on St. Joseph's Catholic Church in Udi local government area of that state. We understand a joint operation by the Department of State Services, DSS, the Army, the police, Enugu State Forest Guard, and others led to a gun battle and with the suspected kidnappers. So we're happy to also see this success and this win, or successes and big wins indeed, for security agencies. We've always said that when they do well, we would commend them, we would salute them. When they do not do well as well, we will constructively criticize them or call them out. So I like the fact that we're seeing this kind of gains in Enugu State, and the names I'm seeing that were arrested there. I mean, maybe we can also put that up if we can. In Enugu State, those who were arrested. Oh my word! Okay, I'm told that this is news just in. Babuga Usman, Usman Muhammad, Aliyu Muhammad were the three persons arrested, and one person in the process, in the gun battle, lost his life. That's one of the kidnappers. So this is commendable. Again, the DSS, I think we need to do more. We need to be perhaps a bit more proactive and ensure that these guys don't even find, there are ways to even kidnap people at all. It looks like even for Nigerians to travel on the roads these days, it's like you have to write your will before you travel. A lot of persons are afraid to travel by road, and this is the same country where in those days people traveled for fun, for adventure. People would just carry their cars, for instance, and leave the south and go to northern Nigeria and vice versa. But that's not the case anymore. So we salute the security agencies, the DSS and other security agencies for the good work you're doing, and we want to see more and more of it. I hope that the federal government too is giving you all that you need to do your job. I know that the DSS DG may not come out to say we're having our struggles, we're having this is what we need and all of that, because we understand the bureaucracy that comes with all of that. But I hope the federal government, Mr. President, you're also giving the security agencies everything they need to do their job, so that we can indeed place a huge demand on our security agencies. Jeff.
Absolutely, and as a matter of fact, I was just looking through, since security concern, I had to look through. I hope I hope I'm not wrong. Since we did an interview yesterday about the cleric, who, by every standard and by all this condemnation that has come through this statement on calling Christians infidel, supporting the candidate of his choice, which is his right, the Muslim ticket. Well, he has said what he had to say, but referring to Christians and other people of faith as infidels was what got everybody irking. And I was looking through to see whether anybody within the presidency, I'm looking, maybe you can help me check. Sunday Dari, Bayo Nonuga, my brother Daniel Bwala. I've not seen anything. I've not seen Atiku said anything. I've not seen Obi said anything. So this is not good. For those of you who want to lead our nation.
Kwankwaso has put out a statement.
Yes.
Kwankwaso, the vice presidential candidate of the NDC.
Okay, that's commendable. Now I'm talking about the principles here, as far as this matter is concerned, because I remember when Cardinal Naikon did that interview, the presidency went gun blazing. Now somebody has made something even worse than what by all parameters, because the Catholic bishops were talking about INEC and things, state of the nation. They said they shouldn't have segued into politics. Now this is very provocative. This is very inciting by a cleric who should be respected and should respect his authority as a cleric, where governors were seated, he was making those remarks, and they were laughing and smiling, which I feel those governors should come out and apologize for what they were doing. However, the same energy with which they tackled Cardinal Naikom, I was expecting them to also come gun blazing on this cleric. But you know what they say, if you're silent, it means complicity. I'm not saying complicity, but your silence is not looking good. The presidency and all these principles have to come out gun blazing and condemn this. The nation belongs to all of us. Whether you're a Muslim, you're a Christian, you don't even believe in any God, it belongs to all of us. Whether you're from the north, the south, whatever ethnic nationality you belong to, it belongs to all of us. So nobody has the liberty to refer to somebody else as infidel, especially in public. No, it's not acceptable. So I hold the presidency on this one. So all the spokespersons who were gun blazing on the cardinals, where's your voice? It's low. We're waiting. You're silent now. So do something, say something, so that nobody reads it the other way around. And the presidential candidate as well, Mr. Obi and Atiku Abubakar, we also want to see you speak openly against these things. Because if you want to lead a nation, you must say you don't belong to anyone. I think those are the words of Muhammad Buhari.
I belong to everyone.
I don't belong to anyone. All right.
Well, I think I had to just look up the president of Burkina Faso, who, yes, is a military leader in Burkina Faso, the Ibrahim Traore. And to do comparisons with what is playing out here, Ibrahim Traore's administration, I'm reading, has cracked down legally on radical preaching, arresting and sentencing specific imams to prison for inciting violence and promoting extremism. Ibrahim Traore in Burkina Faso, a Muslim, is sentencing imams for inciting violence and promoting extremism. A Muslim leader, I think in his late 30s or early 40s, is able to do that. I would have also thought that maybe the governors would have come out to put out a statement or maybe apologize or say, you know what, just to, at least in some crimes by now, it's been more, that event happened, I think, over the weekend. Today is Tuesday, and yet no governor from Jigawa to Kano to Zamfara and other high-profile personalities, some we cannot perhaps recognize, but I'm sure there are other high-profile dignitaries who represents the North to come out and condemn such words and such. We've not seen any. Neither has the Islamic cleric himself, Jingi, come out to say, oh, perhaps I was taken out of context, or just to apologize and say, you know what, maybe I was saying this on a lighter note and all of that. But because of how fragile this country is and sensitive, these are not even issues to say I was saying this on a lighter note or joke with, because of how fragile this nation is. So I think the Islamic cleric himself, he has to do an apology and ensure that we do not divide this country, because we are a multi-religious state. We're a multi-religious secular nation. That is what we are as a people, at least for now. That's what we are. So I think he has to do better as well, the Islamic cleric and those governors there who were present at that particular event. I also want to beg the Christian folks not to respond in such a, because on my way to work I was hearing people calling on radio and they were blasting, they were angry and all of that, saying a lot of things, but some were even saying that we expect the likes of Christian bishops and pastors and bishops to come out, and I said, no, that's not the way to go about it. We want to see love, we want to see unity, we want to tolerate ourselves as much as we can. So we're not going to fan the emblems of hate. No, we're not going to do that, or incite the Christian folks to respond in that same manner. I think the Holy Books encourages us to love. So let's continue to do that and see how we can continue to love our brothers from the other side of things. I think that's Jeff.
No, man, I'm not mincing words. I'm going to call them out. The spokespersons of the president, my brother and friend Daniel Bola, Sunday Daria, Bayan Nanuga, the presidency itself, the chairman of the APC, all of these governors. I can see Umar Namadi, I think that's him. I think that's Jigawa governor.
Jigawa, yes.
I stand to be corrected, but at least I can see the governor of Kano State, and maybe other governors.
Zamfara.
Is it Zamfara now? Yes. I'm not sure of that yet. But whichever governor is seated there, you need to apologize, or you need to explain yourself to the Nigerian people why you were smiling when such very insightful statements were made. And the way things happen in Nigeria is very funny. An Icon's incident happened just barely, is it last week? Or 2 weeks ago, and it went gone blazing for weeks. Now everywhere is quiet. It's just like when Kwam 1 and Kwam 2 happened, while the issue of Kwam 1 was trying to be, managed, another Kwam 2, and so people were using Kwam 2 to assess how Kwam 1, or Kwam 1 to assess how Kwam 2 would be. For those of you who don't know Kwam 1 and Kwam 2, sorry, I may not be able to go back.
Let's not go back there.
Let's not go back there.
It's really Kwam 2.
So let's not go back there. What I'm saying is that it looks like some kind of a coincidence that clerics in the front burner in just 2 weeks, and the reactions from everybody who came gun blazing is suddenly different. That is not acceptable. So if you have energy for one, come and so that we put out a clear position that Nigeria belongs to everyone in spite of our faith. We love our Christian brothers, we love our Muslim brothers. We have a common enemy, they are called terrorists.
And traditionalists, Jeff.
Yeah,
traditionalists, very important.
For those traditionalists and those who don't even believe in anything.
Yeah.
So there are 4 categories: Christians, Muslim, traditionalists, every other traditional or any other faith, as well as people who don't even believe in anything. They are protected under the Constitution. So, Kelly, I'll remind them again. That same energy, bring it on. But we'll take a break, and when we come back after this break, we'll bring our papers to you, and Mr. Adeni Fatai is right here to bring us up to speed or his perspective. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the program, everyone. Let's head to the dailies this morning, right here on the Morning Brief. Mr. Adeni Fatai joins us live on the program. Good to see you in the studios. It's been a minute we had you here in the studios.
Yes, good
morning. Abuja, you're outside the shores of Nigeria.
Yeah. Man must chop.
Okay, well let's not go to stomach infrastructure. All right, let's begin with this Nigeria this morning. Leads with something that has to do with our health. This Nigeria says Lassa fever death toll rises to 237 as cases hit 1,000 in Nigeria. Death toll rising to 237 as cases hit 1,000 in Nigeria. So I wonder what do you make of this story, because you know how we are in this part of the world. Maybe to continue from where you stopped, we'll be like, we want to eat, we want to survive. So sometimes we throw our health in the wind.
Of course, that's not a good thing, throwing our health in the wind because of some infrastructure in quotes. When we talk about Lassa, it still beat my imagination that the government at all level, whether federal, state, and local government, have not been able to do something, especially primary health care, which is first contact to the grassroots. And if we are talking about we're having 1,000 cases, so we don't know the situation of those people, of the outcome of, and these are the things I think government can also provide and say. Is a national tragedy for me that they need to say it should be, if they say they are providing subsidy in kind of free health care services for those who have this kind of fever. You know, some people, because they could not afford registration fee as low as 2,000 to go to the hospital, they resort into self medication, which might not help. They might say it's just only a fever. If I take paracetamol or whatever, that's all. But they don't know that it goes beyond that. And I think the government too, when it comes to orientation, information, the awareness, the campaign, these are the things I think should be blaring in all our radio station, television station, local newspaper and all of that, and telling people about the measure they can put in place. Just like when we had the Ebola or COVID, where you need to wash your hand. If you notice these symptoms in your body, please visit the nearest healthcare services or call this number, emergency number. You'll be attended to, and those are the things I think they should be discussing this time around if they want to tame the death that's from 237. Of course, the life of a Nigerian does not, well, let me say, issue can't, because we are part of this country and it belongs to all of us.
Okay, where do I go to? Wow, this is, maybe let's go to New Telegraph newspaper. Why led coup plot against Tinubu by Colonel Maji says what happened has a long history. It's a page 4 read. I don't know whether you've seen that story.
Yes, I do. You can't build a house on the wrong foundation. Whatever you call it, a coup is a coup, whether you don't like the person in charge, what he's doing. I think one of the things you can do, you can step aside, make your views known. But he made mention of some certain things. I don't know whether if you have read it, talking about that they should establish a channel where those who are serving can communicate or drop a message for the army chiefs, so that they can know what they are going through without fear of victimization. And I thought he talks about welfare. I think the man in question said he had 5 children. It's fair for his kind of the salary that is collecting to raise 5 children. And thanks to the presidency, I think about a few weeks ago, 50%, 80% increment of salary. He talks about the welfare package, the housing, and those who are wounded in combat. So how are they being treated? I look at all those things. Those are the questions that I think the government should address. But coup in whatever form is not the best way to do it, to overthrow a constituted authority. But he raised some concern, which I think the people, at all level, whether state, federal, of course federal, should look into, not just only the military alone, even the police and what have you, all our military personnel. I think they deserve a better engagement. Of course, whatever it is, there's a rule of engagement. You can't just wake up and saying you want to overthrow any government.
I wonder if I can ask perhaps a rhetorical question. Where is Timothy Silva? Because he was essential and critical to all of this. I'm sure the government have their eyes.
Maybe the president had the first report or this information. That was why they did the increment in.
Because I was hoping to hear him say something about
the day unfolds
about Silva in that interview. But let's switch gears now to Daily Trust, which leads with something else. It has to do with politics. 2027, opposition revives coalition against Tinubu. 2027, I like the rhymes there. Opposition revives coalition against Tinubu. It was interesting to see His Excellency Alhaji Atiku Abubakar in Osun State yesterday, and the ADC were bragging and saying, we are the only party whose presidential candidate has come to join the party to campaign. No other presidential candidates, from Accord or APC, is in Osun State. But how is this going to work, especially with the electoral act? Does it mean that one party may just step down completely and support? How is this going to work?
Yes, they said you can't continue to do the same thing and expect different results. If they had come together initially and say form an alliance, this is the person we want to support, but you can't have 2 captains in the ship, and this time around opposite we have like 3 or 4. But going to Osun, talking about Alhaji Atiku Abubakar is a good omen. But I feel that just like it happens even in a state election, you will see that 2 days before the election, this party will say we are lying behind this candidate. I think his vision align with our vision and all of that. So let our members support him. So if they can come together and do all that, but I know one or two that will not want to rule.
Because I wonder who will step down for Atiku Abubakar or Atiku Abubakar. I'm just
so there are so many things that
you have Atiku Abubakar do a 4-year term and then hands over to Peter Obi.
Well, I think it's too late to do that.
8 years.
I think it's too late to do that. But if they can step down and say, look, we see what Nigerians are going through, and we think we have a better agenda. Can we all come together and let's just collapse our structure and let's work for this man, just like what this Peter B is trying to do. That we do one tenor, then maybe they can, if it's not just about personal ambitions, that is about giving Nigeria a better dividend of democracy, better than what we are experiencing this time around. So why not? If it can happen during governorship election, you see some candidates stepping down. If they do it, it will be a good thing, and let's see how it will play.
Well, let's say, I don't want to even say anything. It's their politics. They play how they want to play. Let's talk about what the Guardian is leading with. The Guardian newspaper: opposition kicks as states hike permits, tighten campaign rules. Page 6. This is not new, but it's a very shameful thing we always do every election. And this is not unique to any party.
No.
It looks like everybody takes their own dagger when it comes to elections. You see outrageous increment in terms of billboard permits and all of that, just to disenfranchise people, to silence people, because that's what it is. There's no other explanation to it. How suddenly during election season cost of billboard goes. It can increase, but the way it goes, astronomical. Literally, for smaller parties, you don't even have a chance. So it makes our elections even further expensive to run.
Yes, so, of course you can see that. Just like in most of all the states, they want to be in charge. In fact, sometimes they can even say that if you give that spot, if you give it out, your license can be withdrawn. Some of these advertisers, they receive some calls from authority, and before you know it, they will act in such a way that they need to increase. Even in getting a form of some political party, whether House of Assembly or House of Rep or Senate form or presidential, sometimes you need to break a bank, to be able to afford it. And it's alarming that, because it will give so many people brilliant mind who does not have the financial muscle to participate, and it will shrink their voice, it will shrink their message, it will shrink their visibility. And visibility also play a role, like they say that who control the narrative control the minds of the people. But I think it's something that our National House of Assembly need to look at and review. Why must there be increment, astronomically, just to make sure that the opposition does not have a chance? And not only that, even some who have the money. There was a campaign we had wanted to do in Abuja, and before they said someone has paid for everything for 1 year. I'm like, how? So they said, is it not money that?
Billions or not?
Yes. So that's the thing we are talking about. Those are the issues that even the people at the National Assembly should look at it and review. The maximum you can have a sport 1 month, let it be a rule, another person must have it.
Or you distribute it fairly.
Yeah, you distribute it fairly.
For the people that can afford it.
For the people that can afford it. That's affordability is another question again, because increasing it is not good for our democracy, and that's making it monetized. Like, is whoever has the money that can't, take the slot, or that can.
That's why I said that we're still practicing juvenile politics. It's almost like kindergarten. I'm sorry.
I think ahead of the elections, some 4 years ago, we said that the highest bidder wins. Was going to win. Whether or not that statement came to pass, Nigerians would.
They play a role.
Well, let's just get now to the Nigerian Tribune. It lists with Osun State. NLC women demand free, peaceful poll in Osun. NLC women demand free, peaceful poll in Osun. Adeleke's wife leads women, warns against indiscriminate arrest, harassment. NLC advises against intimidation of workers, pensioners. NSCDC deploys 10,210 personnel tactical units. IPAC cautions against manipulation of election. Atiku, Mark Aregbesola rally voters for ADC candidates. Osun states we are only just few days away now. Matter of let's say maybe 3 or 4 days.
Saturday.
So it's a big day this Saturday, August 15. You can see the women rallying. In fact, they took the rally or the protest to the police office or police command in Osun State, and they're asking that they should allow them having free and fair elections. I wonder perhaps we think these elections are going to be indeed free, fair and credible with all of the events that have played out prior to August 15.
Because now I think we should have that, because all eyes are on Osun State, and both the INEC, Nigerians are looking at them if they are really prepared to give, especially for 2027 general election. So this is like a test for them, that we are looking at you, how you handle this. Even the police and the stakeholder talking about the party candidates, the kind of statement they make, because sometimes they somehow shape the mind of their follower, of their party members, how they behave, how they react. And I also say this in asking for free and fair election in Osun State. If you are listening, if you are voting, if you are there, don't be allowed to be used by any politician to cause a kind of mayhem or steal ballot boxes. Whatever the politician or the candidates, whatever their children cannot do, don't be used, because I think the police, they are prepared based on what they are saying. Let's take them by their words, and they know that Nigerians and even international community, they are watching. So they should give us a better free, fair and credible election, because it shows that what is to come in 2027. And it's a good thing that the governor's wife going out, because the police, they play a critical role, in this election. So in as much we are still crying for state police, they say whether they will be used or not, but with the kind of personnel that will be deployed, I don't think that there should be a kind of ballot snatching or allowing vote buying and all of that. So those are the things that I think the police should put in question, whether it's from party A or party B. And I think this time of period, I think if some people were arrested for vote buying in the election that were held recently, I think this is how they should bring them out. What happened to Mr. A? If you try to do this, it's going to happen to you, so that they can serve as a deterrent. And I don't know whether, if my memory serves me correct, I don't think any of those people have been sentenced or have been punished. So those are the things they should put in the face of the people. Don't be used, don't engage in this, because the law will definitely caught up with you and you pay for it.
Yeah, just before we let you go, I like your comment on, what was that cleric's name? Jingi. That there were statements, very condemnable statements he made. In fact, some people are even calling for his arrest. The DSS should go after him as well.
I said, okay.
And then I think the added to that is Shegumi, who I've interviewed. I've had a back and forth with him over some issues. So people say, why haven't they picked him up? Because they also reference Isho Shore. Shore is in court with the DSS as well over the issue of accusing the president of being a criminal. Do you think they should also pick Jingi?
Yes, because if you are making that statement, so just like you said, because I was listening to you, Nigeria belongs to all of us, regardless of whether you are in party A or not party B, or religion A, or you are not in religion B. So making that statement, you are just saying that some people, they are more owners of Nigeria than others. No,
they have the numbers.
Yes, no, forget
that's the argument.
The argument. Apart from having the number, because constitutionally, Nigeria belongs to all of us, every Nigerian. So regardless of your religion, background, or status, whatever it is. So I told someone while I was coming to the studio that I think DSS should even go after this and call him, just like you said. Showore will make a statement, before you know it, he's back in court. and why some people over there in the part of the northern, and they'll just be looking at them as if nothing happened. And I want to commend you as well for calling out our brothers in the presidency, the spokesperson, all of them. They are not saying
they should talk.
They are not saying anything about it. These are the condemnable. 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, we were talking about Cardinal Onaikon saying that he was just saying this: you people should govern. That's what we elected you for. Do your job. And somebody calling and say the other people they are infidel is a very heavy statement and should be condemned. From every right.
We're about 5 or 6 months of the elections or thereabouts.
And so these kind of statements are
no. They should come. Even the National Assembly, the principal officer, everybody should.
We don't have the guts to do that.
So we should be hearing from DSS whether they should extend an invitation to that man.
Yes, let's see. Yes.
Because of that insight.
Yes, and let him come and say the reason why explain himself. Then
and also those governors that were laughing.
Of course, because sometimes I had the opportunity. I think the former military president, so he was talking about, I met a governor, that these are the things that is happening in your state, and the man said, see, when election is coming and there are statements you cannot make, there are some things you cannot go after. I see that, let me use Lagos for example. Sometimes they said in quotes that when election is coming, they allow some of these Okada or Keke Napep to have their day, but immediately after the election they just switch. So that's a double standard for me. If you want to do this, just go straight ahead. If this is your principle, let's see what the DSS will say about this, or you should have some
I'm just wondering if the presidency would have the guts to arrest.
The presidency doesn't. The presidency's work is to condemn.
Yes,
which they haven't. Which they must. They must.
Yeah.
Let's say they must. They can choose not to.
They can choose not to. But one they can condemn or not, because it can destabilize a nation. That's a statement, and that's where DSS comes in.
Irresponsible. Greatest respect to the cleric. It's condemnable. Because this just happened just after Cardinal Naikon's incident. So we're expecting the same energy
they put into
on this one. So that the message will be clear. It's simple. Nigeria belongs to everyone, and nobody should be allowed to mix. You can say anything in your private spaces,
but in a public no.
It's a no.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, we have to leave it here. Adini Ifeta, public affairs analyst, thank you indeed for your time on the program this morning.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
But this is the morning brief. Let's take a moment. When we come back, we head to Osun State as we get some perspectives as regards just how the institutions there, the police precisely, body which has come under a lot of scrutiny, is prepared or preparing for the polls 3 days away. We're back in just a moment, everyone. Please stay with us.
A lot of drama behind the scene, but let's get straight to the conversation. We're getting to Osun State, and it's going to be a recurring conversation because for those who don't follow politics, Osun State governorship election is on Saturday, and a lot of preparations, but it's been bedeviled by all kinds of violence and killings, even in some instances, and it looks like it's not stopping. So we are having as many conversations as possible from all the stakeholders, from the politicians, from the security agencies, to the electoral umpires, the CSOs, and everybody. Today, we're being joined in the program by the Public Relations Officer of the Osun State Police Command, DSP Abiodun Ojelabi. Mr. Ojelabi, good to see you again, and welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Yeah, I can imagine a lot of work. But you signed up for it. Sorry about that. Are you okay now?
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Now, if you need a breather, I can give you some seconds to take a breather so that you give us all the information. So can we go ahead now, sir?
Yeah, I'm very okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. So talk to us. The last time I had a conversation with you on another program, we did this overview over the issues of security in the state. But it looks like between then and now, things haven't really improved. Despite all the changing of commissioner, the IGP is still speaking about, concerns and telling policemen to be professional. Deployment, I'm sure, have been made. So, talk to us about the latest incident that happened and what the record of the police says. Who instigated what? What really happened? Have people been arrested? Because this happened just, I think, over the weekend.
Which incident is that, please?
I think the one in the rally, the Ilesa rally,
yes.
That became chaotic, and then the one that happened at the Accord Secretariat, yes.
Yeah, let me speak first of all to the one that happened in Ilesa. What happened in Ilesa is clear. We made a statement as regard to that. A party was having their rally, and one other party clashed with them, and in the process, they say they saw some operatives of the Amotekun shooting sporadically, and 3 people was hit by that bullet. So receiving this information, operatives moved to the scene. We made it clear earlier that the IGP, due to what is happening in Osun State, has deployed men ahead of time. Part of the men deployed the FID, IRT. They have been on ground, and they were posted strategically to some high-risk prone areas, which Ilesa is one of them.
Oh dear. Mr. Jalabi, I don't know, something is wrong with the network, but for our audience, so those are the visuals you're seeing from the Ilesa incident. There are gory pictures that had some blood stains. We can't show you that on live TV, but this is an amateur video of the incident that happened over the weekend in Ilesa, where I think the APC was doing a rally or so. So there has been accusation and counter-accusation. There was also another incident. The APC said they were attacked. And then there was another incident at the Accord Party Secretariat, where Accord is also alleging that the APC also attacked them. So it looks like a tit-for-tat situation. And it's very worrying and unfortunate to see that our elections are being bedeviled by incidents such as this. Now, what we should be doing naturally is to be pitching ideas against ideas for the people of Osun State to make a critical decision on whether or not they continue with the leadership of Governor Ademola Adeleke, or they will look for someone else to lead the state. But now all we do is to see how we can even have a peaceful poll in the first place, and see how the people of Osun State can turn out en masse to vote for candidates of their choice. But that looks like it's not over yet. That's why we're engaging the police as to what exactly they are doing to contain these excesses and bring some level of law and order in the state. Mr. Jalabi, can you hear us now?
Wow.
Oh dear.
Wow.
Oh dear. So we'll try and see whether we can reconnect with him. But I wish we could get that IGP's tracker, but I'm not sure we're ready for that. Where the IGP had told the policemen that have been deployed, that will be deployed, I'm sure some of them would have headed out to Osun State to say to them, guys, you have to be professional. Any conduct that is of compromising nature, avoid, because there will be serious reprimand and ultimate sanction if you're found wanting by the book. That's to tell you how the signaling is a very almost a volatile situation for the Osun State governorship election. I think we have the IGP's track now, where he was reeling out a few things and some of his remarks as far as this election is concerned.
The members of the public impunity. Ending impunity does not end with police only. It ends with every member of the community, all Nigerians as well. We will try our best to end impunity amongst our officers, and we have been showing accountability. Officers found to have compromised this law
for that loss have been arrested and have been tried, and we are making it public so that people can see that we are not hiding our officers that misbehave. We have told them this election is important to the Nigerian police and to Nigerians. Everybody is looking out to see what we will do in this election. Officers know the punishment for compromising, and I'm using this opportunity to talk to them. For those of them listening, for those of them that will get to know we held this meeting, officers will be sanctioned accordingly. I'm not going to call any officer behind the door and say, this is what we are going to do there. Go there and do the proper work of monitoring, directing the conduct of the election.
All right, so there you go. Olatunji Disu, the IGP, speaking ahead of the polls in Osun State. I understand Abiodun Ojalabi is back with us, the PPRO Osun State. Mr. Ojalabi, your network was bad, but we were asking you just a moment ago about the August 8th incident, the rally in Ilesa, where we understand a 14-year-old boy died as a result of stray bullet.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
We can hear you loud and clear. Please go ahead, please.
Okay, concerning the incident that happened in Ilesa, nobody died. Let me state that clear. Nobody died in Ilesa.
So where are the reports coming from that a 14-year-old boy was killed as a result of stray bullets?
You see, that is part of the challenges we are having in the state. People just escalate issues. People just escalate what never happened. You understand? So we made a press release to that effect.
Confirm for us if there was a shooting. Were there shootings?
Yes, there was a shooting in Ilesa, and we made 1 or 2 arrests, and investigation is on.
Who shot? The police? Who exactly did the shooting?
The police. The preliminary investigation shows that those that shot were Amotekun operatives and some thugs, some political thugs.
All right. So, I mean, tell us more about that event and what your findings are so far in terms of your investigations.
Well, immediately we got the feeler, our operatives moved to the scene. As I said earlier, the IGP have deployed the FID IRT on ground, and the CP election have done due diligence by deploying them to those high-risk areas. So they were the first respondent to that situation. On getting there, they have to rush those that were hit first to the hospital, and later move back to the scene and recover some exhibits, which include 4 expanded cartridges and a cap of Amotekun operative and some other exhibits. And they didn't just leave the scene at that. They were on ground to stabilize things. They moved around the nooks and crannies of the area, where they sighted a vehicle coming. On stopping the vehicle, and Amotekun operative was inside, and 1 other person. So they have to apprehend the 2 of them, bring them to the state headquarters here for proper interrogation. It is here they discovered that the person apprehended is the Commissioner for Environment and an Amotekun operative, which was identified at the scene. So investigation is on. The Commissioner for Environment was released the following day, less than 24 hours of his arrest. Meanwhile, we are still analyzing the pellets that came out from the pellet that was recovered at the scene, together with the rifle that was recovered from the Amotekun operatives.
All right. So confirm for us, you have said that some persons were hit, perhaps by bullets.
Three persons, yes.
But nobody died. That's what you're saying.
Nobody died. In fact, they have all been discharged as I'm talking to you.
All right. The Commissioner for Environment, was he in possession of any arms or firearms or something? That's Mr. Adejore or so.
He was not in possession. He was, I don't really know, but he was in the vehicle with the Amotekun operative. Probably, I don't know, maybe hired him as a guard or whatever. We don't know yet.
All right.
I will link up with the FIDRT for more details.
Well, we had thought that for all of what has played out in Osun State, your men would have been on ground at the rally in Ilesa. So I'm surprised you're saying that when you got the notification, you had to move into the area with all of the violence and turbulence that has played out ahead of the polls. One would have thought that the police would have been proactive, not reactive.
Well, thank you very much. That is what I am still trying to confirm. We normally have situations whereby sometimes, in fact, so many times they don't notify us of some of the rally, especially those ones taking place at the world. They don't. Most times they don't notify the headquarters. So I will reach out. I will do more to reach out to the DPO to confirm if actually there was a written letter, and if there was a written letter, it's our duty to provide security, and if they do.
Well, I mean, you're saying you're going to reach out to the DPO. PRO, that event played out August 8. Today is August 11. It's been 3 days now, so one would have thought that perhaps you would have had those details. But walk us through the numbers of police officers we currently have in Osun State ahead of the polls, with the deployment from the IGP. For instance, the NSCDC says they have deployed 10,210 personnel. INEC says it's deploying 30,000 corps members. So, police, how many police officers are we expected to see, or do we have right now that have been deployed in all?
Thank you very much. The CP election has addressed that, where he said that he is expecting over 15,000 police officers to be deployed to Osun State. As I'm talking to you now, we have some units of mobile on ground. We have about 16 units on ground to stabilize the situation first. The other deployments, they will start entering Osun State probably tomorrow or next. But the mobile men are on ground with the CP election, with the Deputy Commissioner of Police in charge of mobile, to stabilize the atmosphere before other conventional police officers begin to come in.
Piero, can you tell the people of Osun State, those in Osun State and Nigerians here in Nigeria and in the diaspora, that the police is ready for these elections?
Well, I can tell you for what I know, and that is the truth. The police is fully ready. That Saturday, a meeting was held with the ISIS and the INEC. That is the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, comprising of the military, that is the Army, Navy, and Air Force, and other sister security agencies. As I'm talking to you now, we are all gathering at the police headquarters to see how we can work together. We've identified some flashpoints, and we are going there to clear those flashpoints, precisely the Ilesa area and some other high-risk areas we've identified. With this put in place, and with the deployment we are expecting, as the IGP have rightly said, about 4 police officers to each polling unit, excluding other sister agencies. If we can have 4 police officers, and let's say we have 1 or 2 civil defense, immigration is there, customs are there, road safety and others are there. So I think we are ready. The police is ready together with other sister agencies.
On a scale of 1 to 10, where exactly do you stand?
In terms of readiness?
Yes, sir.
I think as I'm talking to you now, we will give ourselves 8.
I'm asking you all of this because when the events play out on the big day on August 15, we will come back here and review your readiness and all of that. Maybe just one final question before I yield to my colleague, because you're the police image maker. Your job is to ensure that people, the residents in Osun State, trust you, believe in you. But the NLC, the governor's wife, and some other women led a protest to the police yesterday. Why does it appear that some section or some group or some persons from Osun State do not trust the police? They don't believe in you. Why does it appear that way?
Thank you very much. That protest, they didn't just come to the police headquarters. They also went to the government secretariat. If you follow up with that protest, it is a peaceful protest, and the Commissioner of Police in charge of elections attended to them, and they were all happy. And what were they calling for? They were calling for those two things: free, fair, and credible election, and the incessant killings. Those are the two things they called out for, and the Commissioner of Police in charge of election have assured them that as for free, fair, credible, that is the mission, and that is the reason why it was sent down here, that to stabilize the state and to ensure that we have a free, fair, and secure environment for this forthcoming election. And he has promised he won't fail the IG, and with the support of every one of us, he won't fail the IG. So the protest was very peaceful, and the demand was clear. They went to the government secretariat, and they equally came to the police headquarters. So that is not as if they did trust the police. It was just a peaceful protest to tell us that this is what they want. And let me quickly remind you that we went out on Saturday. The police, NDLEA, NYC, the NANS, and others. We went out where we canvassed for a peaceful election, also under the umbrella of POCACOV, that is Police Campaign Against Courtism and Other Vices.
So let's talk about the flashpoint, the places where the police is ultimately concerned. Where are the places the police is ultimately concerned? I know you may not give us all your strategy in terms of mitigation, but I'm sure you've done your mappings. Where should we be looking at critically when it comes to Saturday's election? Okay, let me just mention a few. We'll be looking at Ilesa. We'll be looking at Ife. We'll be looking at some areas in Ijebu-Desha, and we won't. Well, Ikire won't be a high-risk area for now because it has been very peaceful for the last 3 weeks or so. So these are the main area: Ilesa, Ife, and part of Ijebu-Desha. Let's walk back to some of the arrests that were made. In fact, a crowd has been on the loudspeaker screaming that they've been indiscriminately arrested, that is politically motivated, there are no charges against the people that have been arrested. I'd like you to respond to that. I know statements have been released, but I'd like you to respond to that. You see, all our arrests have been made either under the intelligence available to the command, or a petition submitted to the Commissioner of Police or to the state command, either to the election CP or to the command CP. So we are only acting based on these two, and all those arrested, if we see that you have nothing you have no link with the case, with less than 24 hours, you'll be asked to go, and those that are involved will be kept with us. An investigation is on. There is nobody that is being arrested that has nothing to do with the case that is still in custody. All those that have something to do with the case, some of them have been charged to court, some of them are still with us, and some of them have been transferred to the force headquarters. And most of the cases transferred to the force headquarters, the petition was addressed to the Inspector General of Police. All right, thank you so much. Police PRO, because we're going to be checking in as much as possible as far as this election is concerned. People will be on ground, will be following up. We hope that we're going to have a very peaceful exercise despite the build-up to this election that has been marked by all kinds of violence one way or the other. PPRO of Osun State Police Command, Abiodun Jelabi, thank you, sir, for coming on the program. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Welcome back to the program. This is the morning brief. Let's talk about the state of the nation, but to also spotlight exactly what is playing out in Osun State. Professor Anthony Killer is professor of strategy. He joins us live on the program. Thank you indeed, Professor Killer, for joining us here on the program. Always a delight to speak with you.
Good to be here. Good to be here. Good morning, everybody.
Yeah. Well, for starters, how do you assess what has been playing out in Osun State now that we're counting down barely 3 days away to the polls? I wonder if you indeed think and believe that Osun State will experience a free, fair, and credible elections.
Well, I think one hopes so. The desire is to see free, fair, credible elections. And I want to point out one thing. When we talk about free, fair, credible election, it is sad to see that we still talk about it as a luxurious desire, as an achievement to be celebrated. In reality, and I say this really more so for the benefit of our younger viewers, because the old ones, I'm losing hope on them. We must understand that it is not a normal thing to be afraid that elections might not be free and fair. Yes, it is widespread, and here importance to lexicon. It's widespread, it's a familiar situation, but it's not a normal situation. I have written elsewhere, writing about Nigeria, about the normalization as absurdity. It is absurd that we should be saying let's have free and fair election. It should be a given, like water wet, that elections should be free and fair. A society that cannot easily assume that elections will be free and fair is a society in trouble. I heard you talking to the police spokesman, and the gentleman, the poor man, was listing all the things they've deployed and what they hope to get. We're talking about election as if it's a war. It shouldn't be, and it's a sad state of affairs. But, you know, to your question, I don't know if we're going to get free and fair election. I do hope we get free and fair election.
All right, so let's dissect the issues even further, staying with Osun, because that's the immediate national attention that we'll get before we'll segue to other issues. And that has to do with the complaints. Let's even walk back. The issue around violence before election is very disturbing, and Osun State's one is particularly concerning. I think I was coming and I heard some reports saying that over 40 incidents, maybe 50 incidents, and about 29 deaths recorded, politically related deaths, in a state like Osun. So, Prof, when you hear those kinds of data and those kind of numbers and these things, what do you think is really the bone of contention here? We're not talking Lagos, we're not talking Abuja, we're not talking Rivers, with greatest respect.
Oh, well, thank you very much for thinking it's okay elsewhere. Let them not do it.
No, I'm not saying it's okay. I'm talking about resources now.
No, I see what you mean in terms of what are they going to share. No, just tells you that we're in a bad state, and we need to call it out. The way we talk about violence in election, we seem to discuss it as if it's a weather problem, earthquake, rain, or the wind blowing too much or too little. No, it is none of this. It is not organic. It is a group of people who, like you and I, sleep, wake up, or some of them go to bed late, and what they do is to plan violence so that they can grab power. We need to tell ourselves the truth that too many, one is too much, too many of those aspiring for office have some bones of crime in them. They have some affiliation with thuggery and violence. And this is wrong. It is morally wrong, and it is criminally wrong to be that way. The sociology that explains why people do this talk about desperation for power. Desperation for power, they explain in Nigerian context, is that people go to power not to serve, but to enjoy some kind of privileges in the office. I think we need to, from a criminal judicial point, I think we need to be very tough on electoral crimes, violent or non-violent crimes, which would include rigging or manipulation or vote buying or outright deploying of violence. From a sociological and perhaps structural point of view, I think we need to start making public offices less attractive so that people will not feel the need. Nobody kills or buys votes to become a doctor or carpenter. I think it's time we start treating these offices just like any other job so that people will not be so desperate to do that. That is sociology and reform. In the meantime, I think we need to start criminalizing those who violate electoral laws, and we need to be serious on it. But I suspect it might not be possible because the people who are doing it are the people in power. So maybe we need to think outside government of the day, governance of the day, and go to a more structural change, perhaps the constitutional reform along that line.
Okay. Prof, maybe we'll come back to Osun State, as we said, because at the very beginning of the program we said, and on the platform, we're going to be touching base with Osun. But let's talk about other national issues, and one of which is the recent one, which some persons are now saying that the DSS should swoop in and call the cleric to order for questioning. I think it was at a ceremony, I think a wedding ceremony or so, where we saw, at least I saw, Governor of Kano State. I think I also saw Governor of Jigawa. I stand to be corrected. But there are a couple of governors on that chair. When the cleric was making statements about, he's unapologetic about his support for a Muslim ticket, within his right to say whatever he wants to say. And he made some politically strong statement. But where got a lot of people very uncomfortable and condemned his statement was when he referred to Christians as infidel and said the Muslim ticket shows that the Muslims outnumber the Christians in the country. So some persons are saying the DSS should pick him up or should call him to question, all kinds of reaction. What do you make of this?
I think two things. I think the statement of the cleric is garbage. I want to be very clear, and I want to be on record for saying that. I think those kind of statements should not have a place in a mature, democratic, decent society. I think it is not the place of the cleric to tell us how to vote. But I don't think it should be picked up. That said, I think we can express judgment on his statement. I think voters can express judgment on his statement. Opposition can express judgment. We can analyze, criticize, but I don't, just because he's saying Muslims are more, he likes Muslim ticket, and the other people, of course, there's a problem of religious people. If you don't believe in my faith, I think you're unfaithful. I think you're an infidel. It's not as grave as people make it. If you're a Christian and you are comfortable with your own religion, you should ignore this kind of thing. It really doesn't matter. What's that thing they say? This bones and stick can hurt me. Words of mouth cannot do that. It's not. I don't think it's that important. The DSS should be more preoccupied with people who are doing other things. I understand the concern if they say speech is inciting violence, but we should also defend the right of people to say what we don't agree with. At best, we can disparage it. If we go arresting everybody that says what we don't like, many of my students will be in jail.
Well, Prof, the concern is for many Nigerians is the fact that as a nation, we've always been a very fragile nation. We're a very sensitive nation. We're a nation that, words mean a lot to us here. And so Nigerians, that concern is there, is the fact that we have a very fragile state. And so there are those who would argue, for instance, that if you turn the tables or switch gears and look at it from the other side, for instance, can a Christian ticket work in this country? Some would ask, so that's the concern, and that's why PFN, that's the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, they have kicked against it. The Christian Association of Nigeria as well, they've also kicked against those comments, and they argue that what we heard the Islamic clerics say, Sheikh Jingi, is perhaps a reflection of what they've had to go through in northern Nigeria. Prof.
Well, I think you're very right. You used two very important adjectives there, and I want our viewers to take you seriously because that is deep. You said we're sensitive and we're fragile. It is a shame that the nation of 200 million should be sensitive and fragile. We shouldn't be. We should be matured and we should have a backbone to have our opinion if we had educated, informed citizens. Unfortunately, many of our citizens are not that way. And shame on all these leaders, the clerics, the politicians, and the commentators that manipulate the fragility of the state and the sensitivity of the people to get into power. Let them talk about roads, let them talk about electricity, let them talk about employment and inflation. Why are they bringing religion into it? They're bringing religion into it because they're incompetent, because they're trying to distract rather than focus. They need to be told the truth. That is the matter. And all these clerics, let them go and pray. The problem with us is that we don't hold people to account. These clerics who predict and prophesize and think they have the moral authority to tell people how to vote, they should shut up. They didn't see COVID. All of them, left and right. Let them deal with faith and religion inside their churches. If they're going to talk of secular matters, let them teach their followers how to drive like Jesus on the road, how to drive like Muhammad on the road. Let them teach against corruption, against oppression, against lying, against stealing, not to be shouting the praises of power. At some point, when we say accountability, leadership is not just political. At some point in this country, we need to start holding to account clerics, academics, parents, everybody, business people, if we want the society to work. Today's clerics, and I say so far to the clerics, they're not doing well for this country. We have a religious country, but the people do not behave in a righteous way, from leadership to followership, and I blame the religious leaders.
I was also going to ask you to perhaps, if you have the chance to speak to the religious leaders, what would you be saying to them? Because on my way to work, I was just sharing with Jeff and earlier on the show that from the calls that were coming in, I could sense the anger, the resentments, perhaps from the Christian community. So if you're going to speak to those in leadership, the CANs, the PFNs, and of course all of the GOs and superintendents of big churches and all of that, I wonder what perhaps you'll be saying to them to say to their people and followers.
I'm going to say to the clerics, less politics, more prayers. They should focus on theology and philosophy and stop interfering in politics. All the people, good and bad, left and right, at least all Nigerians. You look at Nigeria, you can never see any Nigerian leader who doesn't go to church or mosque, and yet they loot and they don't develop the country. Let the church, let the mosque focus on teaching people to be honest, to be decent, to be caring of each one another, to remember that they're all human beings. Let religion focus on humanity and accountability, and stay back from who to vote for. That's the whole point. That's what we need to. We need to separate church and mosque from state. Let them be philosophers, theologians, moral voices, not political campaign managers. And the people too, if you're a Christian, ignore it if they call you an infidel. Focus on your Jesus. If you're a Muslim and the Christians say you're not a Jesus worshipper, ignore it. Focus on your Muhammad.
Yeah, I know, Prof, I know you have that outlier perspective on these issues. But let's segue from that to the elections. Now we are seeing conversations around the opposition. They had come together into the ADC. For whatever happened, they couldn't manage their interest. They are now split in 2 ways or 3 ways. We're hearing they may want to see how they can aggregate yet again, to see how they can give Bola Tinubu, our president, a run for his money. A bit of an analytics I would like you to do on this in terms of mapping. Is it late already in the day for what they are trying to do, or 24 hours is just a very long time in politics?
Oh no, 24 hours is a long time in politics, and this is even more than 24 hours. This is weeks and months. So it is not too late. But we should be clear. I like to be clear about things, not to be nuanced about it. Why are they having this problem? Because they are selfish, egoistic, driven more than ambitions and purpose. Because they mount the podium and they say they are doing it to save their people. They say that they want to help Nigeria. It's not true. Their first reason is ambition. None of them is dull enough to understand that there can only be one candidate at a time on one particular party. So if they go together to go and join a party, they should know from day one that they need to think of a way to compromise and arrange to have a viable opposition. I have joined some group of people to tell them to talk together, because a democracy requires a vibrant opposition and a viable government. And because if government does not have a viable opposition, government is like to fall in hubris. A government that is not threatened by opposition, that does not see his job or his position at stake, is likely to misbehave. But in this case, the opposition are not living up to their task of what we call elsewhere the crown opposition. They're not living to being leaders in waiting. They should know that their best option to serve the country is to provide the viable front. And their inability to do so speaks more, say a lot, about their ability to understand the country and to sacrifice. There are too many people in this country who are vying for leadership position who have made their ambition to be above purpose, who have made their personal desire to be above vision. And one needs to call them to order to do that and to live up to that expectation. Opposition is a useful tool in a constitutional democracy. Actually, it's essential, more than useful. So to that extent, we have to hope they find a way. So you see, I say this thing, and it's very strange. People just assume that because I say this thing, I'm immediately on one side or the other. But I don't owe anybody apology for my vote, but I want to be held accountable to my analysis. My point is this: whether you're going to vote for APC or not, if you're a lover for democracy, you'll understand that a viable democracy institution requires a vibrant opposition. If you can't get that, then good luck to you. Electoral process is not a football match where you support your team blindly. The electoral process requires us to have love for institution, demand accountability, insist on transparency, and demand the governance. And to do that, you need a viable opposition.
Let's move from politics to the issue of governance and policy, which you're very strategic in. One of the things I've always said that this whole infighting and leadership tussle has denied all of us is the ability to probe and ask critical questions in terms of policy or alternative. But let's stay with the APC and the leadership of President Bola Tinubu. A few days ago, the chairman of the NRS, Zach Adediji, was on our sister program, and he made a strong push for the positive number from the macroeconomic end. Well, my own analytics, I looked at it, I said, okay, this seems to be an aggregation bias based on cherry picking between the disconnects of macro and microeconomic disconnect in that sense. So what they do sometimes, if you bring the opposition, they play up the micro that is on the downside. If you bring the ruling party, they play up the macro that is on the upside. It feels to me that the president has done what he knows how to do best. This is how far he can go. It's just a waiting game. From your assessment, two questions in one. Is this the best the president can do in terms of management of our resources in the economy? And their explanations tenable, given the fact that there's no compounding effect to the macro element of things?
Okay, so there are three elements there. One, you're very right about what you've said. There's a disconnect between macro and microeconomy. And of course, opposition will come and play up what doesn't work, which is the micro. And of course, government will come and play up what works, which is the macro. And this is where citizens should be careful. They should be careful to quote politicians, because politicians are self-interested. They're going to defend one position rather than look at the whole thing. So the situation we are now is that the macro is doing well, but the micro is struggling. People are struggling to pay their bills because the cost of production is high, because the cost of transportation is high, and because these two costs, and because the currency has lost value, because we are great importers, that loss of value affects all our prices. All these things put together make it difficult for people to pay their rent, their health fees, their education fees, because the schools are not working. They have to pay for education, no matter how poor they are. So all this constitutes a strain on the people. You ask me, is the government doing its best? I think so, because if they're not doing their best, then they'll be wicked. Contrary to people, I don't think the government sits there and say, let's make Nigerians suffer. No, I think they're doing their best. I just think their best is not good enough. And that is my view, because I think what they are doing could have been done in a different way. This is the argument we have with them. I keep saying that the government is high on intention, but I think it's low on result, because the method they're using is disputable. I don't believe, for example, in all this throwing money at problems. I believe in increasing supply and varying demand. A good example of that will be, for example, you vary demand by increasing the amount of public transport system, by increasing gas, and then you make refinery, and then you increase supply by investing on refineries. So that way, there is more petrol and diesel to be bought from the pump, and there are less people using it because they're using gas and public transport. So you vary demand, reduce it, and then you increase supply. That way prices will go down, not increasing wages. It's an ideological thing. And I really want to thank you, Jess, because while we're talking about religion and Muslim, and North and South, and it's my turn, your turn, we don't get time to go to the meat of governance. Look at the opposition. What exactly do they stand for? We don't know. That's the problem we have.
Well, perhaps we'll give you more time to, speak to just how perhaps this government should be doing things a bit differently. But again, if you reflect on that interview, what has caught some Nigerians talk is the fact that the NRS boss, Zach Adedeji, said that the president eats once a day. The president walks to his office. He said Nigeria's economy is out of the woods. And then one would wonder perhaps if perhaps those in government understand the current realities of the average Nigerian or average Nigerian household, and how perhaps the pockets and account balances of Nigerians are currently. So I wonder perhaps if you think sometimes when these people go to power, they are surrounded by people who do not tell them the realities of the average Nigerian. But then again, the arguments brought from those in government is that structural reforms would take time for Nigerians to begin to see the benefit. But I wonder how much longer you think Nigerians can continue to hold on.
I think three things. Number one is that, let me admit, I didn't see that the minister's full interview. But when I saw the headline that the president eats once a day and works with his office, my instinct was, who cares? That was my true instinct, I'll be honest with you.
He walks to the office too. I mean, he walks to the office.
He walks to the office because he lives near the office. I walk to the office. My office is, I live in Astro Rock. What's the achievement in that? I mean, all these kind of things are distraction. But I guess his point is trying to make human the president. And some people fall for it. Unfortunately, I'm a bad customer for them. I don't fall for those kind of things. And I suspect you don't either, because so let's leave that aside. The other thing is people say this thing that maybe the government is cut off and the people surrounding them are not telling them the truth. Maybe not. I don't believe in blaming people surrounding anybody. I believe in going to number one. It is the duty of any president, any governor, any minister, any senator, assembly members that went out. The doctor did not prescribe it for you. If you went out to get nomination form, campaign for election, and you get nominated or you get elected, it is your duty to go beyond what people are telling you, to go and find out what is true. You must read reports. I am not in government, but because of my job, I go to the market, I go to my 12, I go to NATO, I go and see these things. I don't wait for assistants just to bring the research. I do not every day, because some people are going to say they didn't see me last week now. I don't want to while.
I'm sure the headline will be Professor Killer goes to my 12 markets on a daily basis.
Exactly. I didn't say every day. But I do go and measure these things to pick up exactly what is going on. And I have my own index. I see the price of yam last week, this week, and not every week, but at regular intervals. It is the duty of the people in power to read newspapers, to call for reports. Let's not blame people surrounding them. And if for any reason they become insulated from the reality, it is incompetence, that is indolence. There is no justification, and we need to call it out.
There's another leg of this governance issue I want you to double down on for us, which has to do with subnationals. Now we want to go for state police. Brilliant idea, but there are concerns about guardrails and safeguard. The working group has called for memoranda. There's a website, nationalpolicing.com, for people to submit whatever it is they want to submit, to give the legislation to make it as robust as possible, because they want to present a draft document to the president prior to presenting the bill before the National Assembly. But whenever we push on the federal government to say, well, the monies, what are you doing with the monies? They say what they can say, but they say, but more of the monies are at the subnational level. And this is where I would like your intervention, Prof. What else has to happen for also have a clear distinction between executive and legislative arms in state house of assembly. I think Nigeria, or our country, is one of the countries with one of the most inefficient subnational legislature. They are literally appendages of the governor. Whenever you see them have issues, is because there's a political fallout, not because of oversight duty. Because if we don't fix that, all of the screams and shouts is going to be a waste of time.
Well, I totally agree with you with the last point, and I'll come back to it. Let me take it from where you started. State policing, fantastic idea. Let nobody say anything about it. Is it perfect? No. Will it face some hurdles, some difficulties? Yes. Are we able to resolve those things? Yes. There's a beautiful book coming out soon. I think it's on some shelves, written by Magnus Oyibe. Let me give him some plug in there. I wrote the foreword, so that can justify my mentioning it. It's about state policing, and I think it's worth looking at. So it's a good idea. You're very right about this jaundiced, unbalanced relationship between federal and state, and within state, the intra-relationship between executive and the legislative arm of government. Let us start from state and federal. They're getting more money. We all should be holding accountable. By we all, Jeff and the rest of your tribe, your media tribe, I blame you first. You should be at the forefront on putting spotlight on what's going on that state. Well, not blame you. I give you the responsibility. Let us share the responsibility. The media should lead us. The rest of us as citizens and observers and scholars should also pay attention to them. But let us go also to the president, who either out of graciousness or by law gave them the money. They should also discuss with them that the money we gave you last month, how far with it. Before giving them the money, they should even discuss that. What are your plans? What are you going to do with it? And perhaps publicize that. You shouldn't just give people money. Yes, they're adults, they are independent in their state. But if you are giving them our money because we're federal, there should be an idea of what for. There should be some kind of report on what they're doing. So I think we all share a collective responsibility on that. It's very funny. You, like many of the observers, bring to bear the problem between state legislative power and executive power. Yes, they're like appendages, but you see, there's something about us, and I don't know where we got it from. We like to look at sequence, and so we like to look at consequence without looking at sequence. I don't want to offend anybody, but I want our viewers to go to the pages of their state house of assemblies and do a quick search on those members of their state assembly. Look at their biography, look at their study, look at their life. You will see their trajectory. You will understand why they cannot do the kind of independent, backboned, verbal and strong house of assembly that Jeff wants them to be. They cannot be, because most of them were just picked up. Most of them are related either to the governor or to the godfather of their state. Most of them are spouses, children, cousins, or of one commissioner, living past commissioner, serving commissioner, or one party leader. You cannot plant tomatoes and expect corn to grow. I think we need a serious rethink if you want to achieve what you want to say. What you were saying, Jeff, or otherwise, we just keep rubbing this thing and we don't face it seriously. I'm tired of doing that. If we want to be frank about this issue, we need to call names and surnames and say exactly what the situation is. The situation is that too many people in the state of our assembly are there. They're choosing specifically because they won't rock the boat.
I mean, there are those who would perhaps even ask what needs to happen. Maybe, I don't know if the system of governance we practice in this part of the world is also a big burden or challenge to us. I know we know how to copy. We copied from, some would say we copied the presidential system from the US. Some also say we took some sort of, parliamentary whatever from the UK and all of that. So there are those who also look at the system of governance we practice and to perhaps which we need to practice that will bring out indeed the best of democratic ideals for Nigeria and Nigerians. And that's why they're afraid that this state police, if it gets into the hands of the governors, it's perhaps going to be abused. Prof?
Look, anything that gets in Nigeria can be abused. Our problem is not the system we copy, that we don't copy to improve, we copy to corrupt. Truth be told, we're nearer to barbarism than to democracy. We're nearer to, godfatherism, barbarism, than to democracy itself. And what we need to do is to really, really be dedicated to making things work. What we need to do is to remind ourselves that democracy has a price, and it is vigilance. Citizens should be citizens. If you can read and write, if you can analyze things by yourself, I want you today to be a campaign manager. You need to, in the sense that if you can read and write and you can understand things that are going on and you know what is right and what is wrong, you need to not go out in the street. Just identify some 20 people and try to influence their votes. Part of our problem is the application of leadership. The only leaders we recognize tend to be political leaders, although clerics are doing well now themselves. We need to understand the middle power, as we call it in diplomacy. Headmasters, family heads. Everybody needs to start playing a part to make the system work.
Well, Prof, we have to leave it here. One thing I've learned from you this morning is that there's babaism.
Yes.
I think Nigerians will remember that. But thank you indeed for your insights on the program as always. Professor Anthony Kila is a professor of strategy and development. Thank you indeed as always for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Well, this is the morning brief. We're not done just yet. We'll take a moment. When we come back, we get to head to Osun State just for a moment as we wind things off and just get to, just spotlight exactly what is playing out. Let's take a moment. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Lagos is home to over 20 million plus persons. With that number comes its own attendant issues. One of the issues is youth population. As we speak, there are concerns about what we call aggressive begging. You've seen some of those videos of celebrities being literally harassed, some of them getting severe panic. Whether you drive a luxury car, you drive a regular car, you see all of these things happen. How can we make these young people productive? Well, we've also tried to reach out to the Honorable Commissioner for Youths in Lagos State. We haven't gotten a positive response as to his appearance yet. Maybe he's going to respond soon to the producer. But as soon as he's ready, we were ready to talk to him. But let's talk to a member of the ADC in the state who is running for the House of Assembly. Ayodeola Adio joins us virtually. Mr. Adio, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
I'm sure you've seen, thanks for your patience as well for waiting on us to come to you. Let's see how much you can binge on this. Talk to us about what we've seen as some kind of an upscale escalation of this. In fact, there are two things that bother a lot of people. One is the aggressive begging that we see with these young persons on the island, on the mainland, and then the issue of, I don't know what it's called now, where this, I think Ola of Lagos, which we've interviewed a long time ago, he made that popular, at least in recent time, when he's going to be taking videos of luxury cars and talking about who owns them perhaps, or what the name of those cars are. And sometimes these things border on personal privacy and national security or personal security. But what do you make of this trend now? Aggressive begging in Lagos and this car spotting. I'm trying to remember the name. I can't remember the name now. That can border on privacy.
Okay, just to really touch on the car spotting thing, I can argue that a lot of the people who you see their cars being profiled also enjoy the ride and sometimes even pay some of these boys to make all the noise that they want to make for them. But however, let's go to the meat of the conversation, which is the amount of young people you see on the streets on drugs, in several neighborhoods across Lagos State, even high-profile areas in Lagos State. Is a symptom of an economy over the last 2 decades, perhaps, that has widened unemployment and has deepened poverty in our country. Young people leave school and are unable to get jobs. Young people who leave secondary schools and are unable to get into university do also not have the kinds of skills to earn an income in between that gap, to earn a living. and perhaps to wait until they have enough resources saved to get into university. So you put it all together, we have created an economy, what I like to call a casino economy that favors a tiny elite at the top and leaves the majority at the bottom in absolute poverty. You would recall that Professor Doyin Salami released a report recently that made the point that less than 2% of Nigerians control 44% of the wealth in this country. That's a staggering inequality that we're experiencing in this country, and an economy that is not creating enough jobs and opportunities for young people at the bottom. And until that fundamentally changes, you're likely to see many of our streets overridden by young people begging, many of which will get a lot more aggressive over the years. And you're likely to see a lot of street begging across the country. So something has to give. And for me, it's about policy from the federal and state governments that align and create an enabling environment that lifts millions of young people out of poverty and plug them into the productive economy. And except that happens, we're just going to be on the edge of chaos.
So, in positing with Lagos, for instance, because there are a couple of questions I wanted to ask the Commissioner for Youth. Where do they really? Where should they really start from with this issue? Yes, I hear you when you said some of these people enjoy this, filming that they film, but I've also seen some of them literally in panic mode. Literally, when these guys jump on the vehicles and literally want to break through the vehicle, I don't know, for whatever. In terms of policy directives, what should be done immediately? Because it doesn't look good at all. In fact, somebody did a mini docu I saw, I think on social media, which doesn't tell well of a mega city like Lagos. Adio?
So what you're seeing in Lagos is Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
So what you're seeing in Lagos is a convergence. Yes. So what you're seeing in Lagos is a convergence of three factors. One is a poor housing policy. And perhaps let me just sum it up into a cost of living crisis that you're experiencing in Lagos. One, driven by the high cost of accommodation, which means that a lot of young people cannot afford to pay rents. And so you have a lot of young people who now live on the streets in Lagos, or they live in crowded spaces where you have 8 to 9, 10 young men cramping into a room to live, and at night all of these young men are outside in quote hustling. You also have a high cost transportation problem in Lagos, where people who actually even live in low income areas, and you're talking about the extremes end of Ikorodu, Badagry, Ibejuleki, the cost of moving those people to this mega city center, where the economic activities like Lekki, Victoria Island, Ikeja, GRA, and perhaps a bit of Surulere, is stupendously expensive that such individuals cannot go to and fro every day back and for work. So what happens is that the combination of high cost of rentals and high cost of transportation forces young people to concentrate in areas of economic centers like Lekki, Victoria Island, and Ikeja. And that's why you see all of these boys constantly on the streets, particularly in these corridors, because that's where economic activities are. That's where they can harass people to beg for money and get 5 to 10 naira off their pockets. And that's exactly the same places where they can earn a decent living even if they want to. So you have a situation where the cost of living crisis is forcing a lot of young people on the streets of Lagos, some of whom have now been forced to commit several unscrupulous and unbecoming acts, like being aggressive on the roads, and things like that. So we have to tackle it. And you asked me what the first thing that people need to do. I think is to tackle the cost of living crisis in Lagos. Once we're able to do that, and we tackle that simultaneously with the housing problem in Lagos, we will be able to reduce this amount of nuisance that you see on the streets of Lagos.
Eladio, I couldn't have agreed less with you. I remember during a documentary earlier this year where I went to the Lagos-Calabar Coastal Highway, where there are shanties, and I interacted with those who live in these shanties, and some of the points you've mentioned, resonates, because some of them explain that indeed some of them live in the extremes of Lagos, and because of work, their families who are in those shanties will have to stay there from Mondays to Fridays, and then by maybe weekend they go back to their homes. But there are those also who said, you know what, we're living somewhere and our houses were demolished and all of that. It's a big concern. And I tell you what, I saw some really very young, talented Nigerians in that place, in the shanties. In fact, there's a particular place where they call Marwa. I went to the heart, they call it the heart of the ghetto. you know how this job takes us to almost every corner. So, when I spoke to those guys, some of them sounded educated. I mean, they could speak really well. And I wish that I had my way. If I had my way, I would have pulled them away from there and fix them, make them have better lives. But if you're going to talk to any of those guys who are there, they're young Nigerians, really very talented. I wonder what exactly you would say to them. The second part of my question would be, in 1991, according to the World Population Review, Lagos had a population of barely 5 million plus. As it stands right now, we are around over 20 million plus. We're not exactly sure. According to reports, about 6,000 people and more enter Lagos on a daily basis, and more than half the number stay back in Lagos. What needs to happen in other states for people to stay in their states and be comfortable there? What needs to happen? Because as much as we want to blame perhaps even the Lagos state government and all of that, but we forget that Nigerians are leaving different parts of the country to come to Lagos, where it is believed that once you get to Lagos, you must make them.
Well, you're right. To the first leg of your question, I'm not sure what I'm going to tell the young man living in the slum in Marwa or the various slums in Victoria Island, and perhaps many of them that proliferate Etiosa local government. Because like you rightfully said, there is an apartheid housing policy in Lagos where houses of the poor and low-income earners are being demolished and they are moved outside the skirts of the city center, towards, far locations outside Ibejuleki, Eleko, Badagry, removing them from the economic centers where they earn a living from. Like I mentioned the other time, they can't afford to come to work from Eleko every day because the cost of transportation will mean that they are working for absolutely nothing. So until we fix this apartheid housing policy that makes housing the exclusive purview of those who have wealth and are upwardly mobile, we're going to fundamentally deal with people living in slums and have these crowded spaces along in quote elite corridors in Lagos. The second part of your question, really and truly, is that it's a national crisis. Because you just don't have the surge of population in Lagos, even though you have a traffic flow into Lagos for economic opportunities. What needs to happen is that there has to be a consensus by federal and state governments to drive prosperity for young people and to lift millions of people out of poverty. Let me tell you why this is even frightening. By 1990, world poverty had been decisively reduced across many countries in the world, except for 7 countries. You can add Congo is part of them, and Nigeria was one of those 7 countries. That rather than reducing global poverty over the last 3-4 decades, we have added close to 37 million more people that are extremely poor in our economy. The reason is because, like I argue, we run a casino economy that has been actually energized by the recent administration, where the elites with wealth and capital seem to multiply their own wealth, and those at the lower end of the ladder continue to grapple for straws. And so we have created a lot more poor people in this country because factories aren't working, processing facilities aren't working, and these are large-scale businesses that can lift people out of poverty. The cost of capital is high. If you go to a microfinance to access capital, you'll be paying upward of 60%
to pay back a loan. That is unsustainable to give life to small and micro businesses a start. So something has to shift fundamentally from the cost of micro capital to the larger economy that invests in processing and high manufacturing concerns that are tied to our agricultural value chain that creates meaningful job opportunities for millions of young people across the country. Now, except that happens, people will keep flooding to Lagos with the delusion that there are going to be jobs waiting for them on the streets. And that, for instance, hasn't happened over the years. Even the Lagos economy is not creating as much jobs as people expect it to. And it's not going to change because it's a policy problem at the center and at the state level.
Adio, because you're a politician, I like the fact that you've had to speak not like a politician at all. You've had to address the issues. But if perhaps you have the chance, how do you address these issues differently?
Oh, my good friend, I'm going to have a chance in 2027 because I'm going to win the Etiosa 2 constituency election. What we're going to do differently is a pragmatic approach to governance. And I give you an instance because I'm deeply worried, right? Because today as we speak, remember that a Supreme Court justice in India made a very unpleasant remarks about young people that led to a cockroach revolution now in India, where millions of young people are consistently protesting such that the education minister had to resign. In 2025 in Sri Lanka, because of lack of opportunities and the banning of social media, young people went on the streets demanding better, and it led to the ousting of the prime minister of that country. In 2024, the same thing happened in Bangladesh. Because of the lack of job opportunities, millions of young people flooded the streets and led to the resignation of the prime minister. So there is a wave of young people who can no longer deal with the lack of opportunities and the cost of living crisis at a global scale. And so you need politicians to be pragmatic to respond to the current challenges that young people face, which is the high cost of transportation, which is the high cost of housing, and which is the high cost of educating their children. On these three particular scores, the Lagos state government has spectacularly failed. The British Prime Minister came into office and the first thing he did was to cap the price of bus transportation at £2. In Lagos, we raised the price of BRT by 15% in the middle of an energy crisis in the world. That is absurd. It means that you're not living in the reality of millions of people. The cost of property in Lagos continue to rise faster than income and wages can catch up to. So these are pragmatic approaches that we must invest in social and public housing. We must invest in cheap, affordable public transportation that can move people across the city so that they can access economic opportunities. We must intervene in microcredits to provide facility for young people to start micro businesses without having to run into debt, because microfinances are charging 60% on return of capital. These are the fundamentals that I am going to focus with. These are the fundamentals that my party is going to focus with, and I believe that way we can begin the process of turning the corner, albeit gradually.
Well, thank you so much, Ayodele. We wish you the very best in your journey. We're building to that moment. We call it the Super Bowl of political leadership in Nigeria. January and February, we'll get to the polls, and all of the hot air will be tested on the field. But thank you for your insight on these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. God bless you.
All right, so just before we wrap up the show, let's get to talk about some of the things. Kelly, I saw the story on one of the dailies. I think it was reported by the dailies because it was carried by a sister program, where one of the persons, I think about 1,000 or so persons that the state, is it Kano now? Kano state government help, these mass weddings they do time and again to support families. What just got me, I was just shaking my head, literally squirming on my chair, like, what exactly is this? So one of the beneficiaries of that mass wedding says that the mass wedding helped him to secure not the second wife, a third. So it's not his first wife. He has a first wife, he has a second wife. Now since government says, look, if you want to marry, we can help you, they helped him to secure a third wife. Wow. It's the reason he said it has helped him to the burden of, their religion allows, you to marry as many people as possible. But I'm talking about economics here.
Yeah.
Why should the government fund somebody to marry a third wife? I'm just a bit worried about that.
Well, maybe the NRS guy, Zach Adeliji, maybe when he sees people like this, you can see that someone is going for a third wife. It means that the government is doing well.
How did Zach come into this conversation?
Yeah, because he says we are doing well. The economy we are out of the woods.
Zach shouldn't come into this. So if this is a Kano State government problem.
But if someone can go for a third wife, it means that he has the capacity to take care of her. So it means it's doing well. We're out of the woods, actually.
I can see the sarcasm. But anyway, but I just feel that if you want to support people as a government, I think we should be a bit more responsible with greatest respect. If the man has 2 wives already, why help him to marry a third? If he wants to marry a third wife, he uses his money, not state funds, because this is state funds. State is saying people that are of marriageable age or that are already, in the relationship that is not formalized. Perhaps that's the idea from my understanding. We don't want you to do anything illegal. Why don't we help you, support you to marry? And then somebody's doing a third wife.
The point is even that we understand that event, the beneficiary shared his views at that event that has drawn a lot of criticisms where the governors were, that's where the Sheikh Jingi spoke. But I was going to say that I think this is a reflection of our society in Nigeria. And why am I saying that? Because in this same country, we are so religious that there are people who, if you do not allow them or pay for their pilgrimage to either Israel or Mecca, you are perhaps the worst government. So they prefer that you do that for them than for the economy to be better. So I think it's a reflection of the kind of people that we are,
Well, I don't know, issues of pilgrimage, I think the state should just isolate themselves from issues. I think this is the wedding.
Okay, this is the wedding.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, I think this is where the sheikhs were, so the husband and wife.
So the males, the husbands and wives?
Yes, of course, the women are somewhat different from the males, so this is where sheikhs were. So many things happened at this event. That it's a monumental moment. But
nobody's wishing that perhaps it was in Kano to pick up a second or third one.
Well, we thank you for your time and company. Nigeria belongs to all of us, and we must respect one another. That's the central message here. And we should do the best to make our country the very best, no matter our shortcomings. But we must thank you for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Osama. Bye-bye.
Well, Sunrise Daily is up next. I am Kelly Egiga. Have a productive Tuesday.